damages of £140,000 against Mirror Group newspapers. A High Court judge said he was a victim of unlawful information gathering. The Daily Mirror newspaper apologised unreservedly. Now, gentlemen, I have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
Alex, you're also very interested in it because obviously you work in PR and still work in PR. You have an understanding of this. I was hacked around this time as well. Now, when we say hacking, what we mean is there was a lazy journalist about 5 o'clock on a Friday, would sit in his office and he'd ring your voicemails like this and he'd try and you just get through. Now, I knew at the time that they were doing this because a journalist tipped me off and said, look, you're on the telly a bit at the moment. My husband was rowing the Atlantic at the time, and that was why they were seeing if I was having an affair with anybody. My life was so boring. And I was approached by the police to say, you are on this list, and do you want to claim damages? And I said, no. Why would I? And they said, because you must be traumatised. And I said, but if they listen to my voicemail messages, it's literally my mum saying, I'm in Sainsbury's, do you want more nappies? I couldn't fake the trauma to get a few £100,000 off a newspaper group for something that was, in my mind, Alex, not that serious.
You didn't feel like it was intrusive?
No, because I've been told...
a lot of people felt very differently.
Yeah, but I would dispute the fact that Harry didn't even know this was happening. I wasn't in the royal family. I was just a TV presenter, and I had a tabloid journalist say, change your code on your phone and they can't listen to your voicemail messages. The idea that he didn't know this was happening and he couldn't have protected himself very easily.
Well, I think he probably would have retrospectively realised when you look back and you think, this story broke and... oh, yes, somebody did talk to me about that at the time. And then there was that story, but it's only in hindsight that you realise those things. And, of course, there was the major payout. Sienna Miller, you remember, got right at the beginning of this stuff. But the most alarming thing from this story for me is that the hacking went on, even to an extent, during the course of the Leveson inquiry into phone hacking. That's the most extraordinary thing. People felt so entitled to go and abuse other people's privacy and other people's telephone systems that they continued to do it even while there was a judicial investigation.
You see,
I don't think it's light at all, actually.
I have to say, I'm with Piers Morgan on this one. Piers Morgan's been saying what Harry doesn't know about the truth. Like, the idea that Harry is fighting for privacy...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to hog the airtime, but that two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah, Prince Harry can be a clot, and it can also be completely wrong to hack his voicemail.
The idea
and lie about it.
But the idea, Matthew, that he's fighting about his privacy. This is a man who has a camera crew that follows him around day and night and broadcasts it on Netflix.
I think there is some irony that Prince Harry is taking the case and that he's the one who's also, frankly, questions to ask for his security at the time, because obviously he's now fighting about whether or not he gets a particular level of security. At that time, he had the highest level of security, and you know, it shouldn't just be physical security. People should obviously have been looking at his electronic security as well. I mean, I wasn't hacked, but I had lots of friends who were. You know, so there were several friends who've got the letter from mostly from News International, publishers of the Sun, with the apology letter framed in a few bathrooms.
And did they get money?
And they got money. Yeah, I mean, they got sort of 10, 20,000.
I'm an idiot, aren't I? I've got friends who have whole conservatories.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's known, isn't it, as in sort of media and politics, it's known as the kind of conservatory payout, because a lot of people got a conservatory or a new bathroom out of it. That doesn't take away from the fact that some people did find it very difficult, and obviously, if people were less you know, boring, as you would put it, but wholesome, we might say, then obviously their lives were intruded into, and it was wrong that they were doing it. And as Alex says, doing it so late, that's what really shocked me, is doing it while the Leveson inquiry was still going on.
I think we have to be really clear about what this is. This isn't a van at the end of your road with a listening device like something out of Scooby-Doo, going in and listening to your live.
It's the modern equivalent of that, though, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is.
It's very basic.
We could all do it to each other's phones now.
Most of the time, the reason it worked was that people hadn't reset their phones from the factory setting.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's right. So there was a code you'd put in. I think the area where it does get difficult was the Millie Dowler situation.
Oh, no, awful.
Because that was difficult, because this was a girl who'd gone missing, and in order to get involved, effectively, journalists hacked into Millie Dowler's phone, and that therefore confused the investigation, and they thought it was her accessing her own voicemail messages.
The reason.
That lesson, I think, has been learnt, though.
That's the reason I don't object to Prince Harry being the person who brings these cases, because cases are brought by people who have the wherewithal and the will to bring the case to court, but the behaviour they're seeking to call out doesn't just apply to them. It applies to a plethora of people, and it will apply to many people who are bereaved, who have no money, who don't have the ability to instruct expensive lawyers and take a case like this. So sometimes someone like Prince Harry, and he's gone through months and months of criticism at the highest level in our media for doing so, brings a case like this, and you know what? He won. Loads of people were saying he was going to lose, and it's a bit of a humble pie time, I think.
I think the thing for me as well, though, is the fact that it's such a long time ago now. I mean, this is what.
I think we can be assured it's not happening because nobody uses voicemail anymore, isn't it? So this is at least that.
That's right, and it's for me, it's not systemic surveillance. I'm much more worried about a camera on every street looking at our faces at the moment, so we're effectively living in an open prison. That kind of surveillance bothers me enormously. This is one guy. When I saw the piece of paper with the notes on, when they sat me down in the police station in Putney and it was all very serious, and was I OK and did I need a glass of water? And there was like daisies doodled in the corner, and they went through, whose number is that? It's my mother. Whose number is that? It's British Gas. And it was like, are you OK? I'm fine.
But some people had more traumatic experiences. I mean, look, I agree. I think what we...
But what? How traumatic can it be?
Well, if they're having an affair or something...
Hang on. It's quite easy to construct a way it's more traumatic. It was your mum and the gas person. But in your example, your then husband rowing across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Let's say you got a voicemail saying something terrible had happened and he'd gone missing. Of course, thank goodness, in the end, it turns out he was OK. But, they break the story because they got hold of the story of your husband's disappearance from your voicemail because somebody who works in the tracking team, the team looking after him, they can't get hold of you, they're desperate to find you. Please call me back, we can't find James. Now, there's a story, and it's highly intrusive. So even in your example, I can construct quite easily a situation. Your mum's very sick. Please call us as soon as you can.
It's very persuasive, Alex. I have to say that is very persuasive. I just wonder whether anything, because the judge said, Justice Fancourt said today about the fact that Prince Harry, the stories were largely trivial. That's kind of the point in his case.
Yeah, but they still shouldn't have been doing it. And I think the good thing, at least, is it's the last hurrah of that sort of tabloid journalism. I mean, a mixture of things like the voicemail nobody uses their voicemail anymore. Yeah. But add to which the massive decline of the tabloids, not least because of all the phone hacking payouts that they've had to endure, means that hopefully this is the end of that era of tabloid journalism.
Like most people, I hate it when someone leaves me a voicemail. It's a real pain.
I have a voice note that says, don't leave me a voicemail.
But the point is, when the person hacks your phone, they don't know that what they're going to get is trivial. It could be really profound.
I guess so. And that is a very convincing idea, I think. That is a very convincing argument, Alex, that there might have run something. But surely in that situation, if my husband had gone missing at sea, wouldn't they have then called me and said, do you know your husband's gone missing at sea?
They might do when they're ready to go to print, but they might do it just before and therefore beat their rivals by a day. Or let's try another example. The hospital calls you and says, Michael's brother, sister, cousin is sick. We can't get hold of him because he's on the ocean. How do we get in touch with your husband? Right? And so that's the story they get. They get our hero rowing the ocean, Jamie Cracknell, is going to have this terrible trauma when he comes back, but he's not going to know for a week because he's out of touch.
Yeah.
And they get it from your phone.
It's very convincing, I have to say. I think it's just that with the passage of time and looking at Harry, it feels from his point of view. Let's criticise him instead of me for being wrong. The passage of time...
We always like to have a bit of a go at Prince Harry. It's always good for a Friday evening.
Harry is... you feel like the motivation for him is what? It is spite. It is
he would like to see the tabloid press closed down. And actually, there is an issue. Mirror is part of a company called Reach. They just had to sack a whole load of journalists because their revenues continue to decline. They own other papers like the Express, the Star, and lots of regional papers. So I think there's a fine line to be drawn between kind of driving the tabloids into the ground and seeking redress for what was quite clear wrongdoing, which should be punished.
There's another point to this story, though, given you are talking about Prince Harry, which is this is a time before he had children, before he was married, when he was quite famously sowing his wild oats. But even he was entitled to a private life in that sense, and the people who would be in touch with him certainly were. And I can imagine there might have been young women telephoning Harry from time to time who had not signed up to have their names all over the papers, but the papers would have loved to have got hold of it via a voicemail. So that could be really quite damaging to a girl at university age, sort of thing.
Absolutely,
as he was then.
I mean, it was quite traumatic for those who were named, who was sort of girlfriends at the time, who were longer, not through phone hacking, but just through going out with him. But if you had just sort of been on one date or met him once or something, and suddenly your whole life changes, and all via a voicemail potentially. So I think victims, really were vulnerable.
I agree. And on your point about how long it's taken, it would have taken a great deal less time if the people responsible had fessed up immediately. It would be much easier to deal with phone hacking if they said, you know what, here's what we did.
Yeah, and that's actually something that's going to emerge now, is because, as we said, with sort of my friends just found their name on a list. Sometimes sometimes it wasn't absolutely clear if they had or had not had their phone hacked, but they potentially had. So in that case, the newspapers rolled over and just sent them a cheque, and they agreed out of court. So you effectively didn't have to do anything.
Did you think? Did they not know at the time, though? Your famous friends? Can you give us some names?
They were.
Who are your famous friends?
Well, I'm not going to. It's not fair to say, but I mean, one of them was a press officer at the Labour Party. But
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. There's that kind of level of
quite dull.
Yeah, I mean, but they wanted to, on Tony Blair at the time. This is at the end of or Gordon or whatever. So therefore, they thought they could get it via things like that. So it was kind of people, operatives in politics, who were being targeted, not because they were exciting, but because the people they were trying to look after and work for were. So it's very strange, as you say, Alex, that it's taken so long in these instances. So there are lots of questions for the Mirror.
Look, the people who did the hacking know who they hacked, right? That would have been much quicker if they said, you know what,
here's the list.
Here's what I did.
But
The back of those notebooks with the doodles, there's a list.
But you see, you get paid for the damages for your emotional distress. And I think I have a real problem with people taking legal cases just to get some money out of it. Were your friends genuinely emotionally
They didn't really tell me. I think also at the time, I think people were so angry about it that it was just that they thought it was intrusive. And frankly, it's a bit like sort of slipped on a chip, isn't it? And the people were just presented with a list and said, it's not going to be a massive problem with your life because they fessed up. I think that was the issue. They weren't going to have to go to court. And frankly, in the case of one of the, I could see the letter frame now. Mr. Murdoch could have afforded the 3,000 that paid for the new bathroom or the new conservatory. So I think it's, let's not remember it was wrong. It may not in all cases have caused huge damage, but in all cases it was morally and legally wrong.